Section intro, us. As the disabled people's movement grew throughout the 1980s, it became clear that the majority of images of disabled people still focused on impairment, usually reinforcing oppressive stereotypes. Most of these images were produced for charity advertising campaigns or were created by non-disabled photographers. The 1990s saw numerous groundbreaking projects with disabled people, creating images of themselves which reflected more of their lived experience and challenged these representations. For the first time, the diversity of disabled people's lives was visible, including the documentation of disabled people's participation in protest and the arts, and as active decision-makers in their own lives. As the need for better representations became more widely recognised by the mainstream media, issues such as the invisibility of disabled women, disabled people as parents, and acknowledgement of disabled people's sexuality began to be tackled. However, these tasks are far from complete. Issues of representation and visibility are ongoing concerns. Liberty, Equality, Disability, Images of a Movement posters, 1992. This landmark poster series was produced and photographed by David Heavey and funded by Joseph Rowntree Foundation. The poster campaign was the first to celebrate the emerging disabled people's movement and challenge dominant representations of disability. It is widely credited with changing negative charity advertising around disabled people, on loan from Disabled People's Archive. Normal Photograph by Benedict Phillips and Emma Roberts, 2019. This image was created as part of a project run by artist Benedict Phillips called How to Be a Dyslexic Artist and Other Stories. The work produced was the result of a short course for 11 neurodiverse adults who explored their personal experiences of being dyslexic. They focused on the relationship between themselves and their experiences of functioning in a text-heavy society. On loan from Benedict Phillips. Hate Crime Cartoon by Crippen, 2020. Dave Lupton is a disabled cartoonist and campaigner who makes artwork under his alter ego, Crippen. He has been producing political cartoons for over 30 years through the lens of the social model of disability. In this exhibition, you will see only a small selection of the cartoons he has made. Copyright of www.crippencartoons.com. Sisters of Frida banner, 2018. Sisters of Frida is an experimental collective of disabled women, taking its name from disabled artist Frida Kahlo. Discussing, sharing experiences and exploring intersectional possibilities is at the heart of the group's ethos. Quote, "We are disabled women, but that is not our only identity. We are also embracing the whole package of being women and disabled. We want to celebrate the differences of being different ethnic origins, different cultures and nationalities, of different sexual orientation, of being mums, having partners and being single women." On loan from Sisters of Frida. Stop Asimi Brown's Deportation Protest Photographs, 2021. In 2018, Asimi Brown, a young autistic and learning disabled man, was jailed over the theft of a mobile phone. He was prosecuted as part of a group under joint enterprise law, despite a witness noting that he had in fact tried to stop the robbery. On release from prison, Asimi faced deportation to Jamaica, the country he had left when he was 4 years old and where he had no family or support system. Following an online petition and protests around the country, the Home Office abandoned their plans to deport Asimi in June 2021, courtesy of Emma Dalmain. Photograph showing Manjit Kaur at UN Anti-Racism Day national demonstration in London, March 2014. Afghan-born Manjit Kaur arrived in the UK in 2011. She was seeking asylum after fleeing India in fear for her life. Manjit soon became a prominent disability rights activist and chair of Refugee and Asylum Seeker Participatory Action Research, RAPAR, where she campaigned for asylum seekers' human rights. Manjit Kaur made a huge impact in her short life. She died aged 41 in April 2020, courtesy of Mark Krantz. Photograph showing a protest in support of Manjit Kaur outside the Tribunal Service in Manchester, 2014. This protest was in support of Manjit Kaur after the Home Office had rejected her asylum claim and were attempting to evict her from the place she had been living since 2011. After a long fight, Manjit's right to remain was finally granted in 2019, courtesy of Disabled People's Archive. Quote, "The triple oppression of being a black disabled woman should not be overlooked. All the issues affecting disabled women apply to disabled black women. However, the way in which we experience and interpret these issues is likely to differ as the dimensions of race interact to shape our lives." Nasa Begum. Why Autistic Pride Matters video by Agony Orty, Manchester, Autistic Pride 2018. 3 minutes, 33 seconds. Courtesy of Sarah Jane Dunn and Liam Harvey. Disabled Black Lives Matter Campaign Films, 2020, 3 minutes 51 seconds. These films were produced as part of the Alliance for Inclusive Education, ALFI's campaign to address racial and intersectional inequality of Black disabled people in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, courtesy of ALFI. Autism Acceptance Poster, 2018. Many autistic people don't like the use of the puzzle piece as a symbol for autism as it has many negative associations. The blue puzzle piece is also the logo of the controversial US autism charity Autism Speaks, which advocates harmful treatments and finding a cure for autism. On loan from Mercy Charpentier. The Voice poster, 1998. This poster advertised a new magazine for deaf people produced by the Federation of Deaf People, FDP. Young Disabled People Can Become Parents poster, date unknown. This poster is part of a series created as a campaign to try and change people's perceptions of young disabled people. They were designed by young disabled people in collaboration with Brook Advisory Service, on loan from Sue Elsgood. Access to Image Photo Workbook, 1992. Access to Image was a project run by Valid, a disability arts organisation in Bradford, which appealed to disabled people to produce images of themselves. This book explains the process and gives some useful exercises for people to follow to explore their own self-image work. On loan from Ruth Malkin. Boadicea, Disabled Women's Newsletter, 2001. Boadicea was the voice of disabled women in London. It was published by Greater London Association of Disabled People. Jew Gosling, aka Jew90, is a disabled artist who has worked internationally and was the editor of the newsletter in 2001. The front page features an article by Micheline Mason, a leading campaigner for inclusive education, on loan from Ruth Malkin. Access to Women's Services video, produced by British Deaf Association, 1990s. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, as technology changed, organisations representing deaf people tried their best, in the absence of any government-mandated support, to provide information on essential health matters in British Sign Language, BSL. This led to the founding by deaf people of Sign Health, which now leads the way in providing BSL information on health conditions, remote interpreting services in hospitals, and runs residential care for deaf people staffed by BSL users. On loan from Disabled People's Archive. Autistic Pride Manchester Picnic Materials, 2018. Quote, "The Autistic Pride picnic events in Manchester are an opportunity for a minority group to meet like-minded people in a safe, relaxed and accessible atmosphere. The picnics have decorations, games and toys for all ages, music and speeches, and a sticker-based communication system. People can bring food and blankets to share, or they can keep it themselves. We spend all day at the park, and autistic guests and families can come and go at their own pace. Friendships and networks are formed and advice and support is shared, all while celebrating our unique culture and neurology." Mercy Charpentier, on loan from Mercy Charpentier. Autscape Conference poster, 2022. The Autscape Conference and Retreat started in 2005. It is organised and run by autistic people. It is set up as an educational conference, a social gathering and an opportunity for advocacy and networking, as well as offering an escape to an autistic-friendly space, courtesy of Pete Marshall. Autscape Lanyard and Colour-Coded Cards, 2022. These colour-coded lanyard messages provide useful indicators of how each person would like to socialise or not, allowing autistic people to respect one another's needs without fear or anxiety. On loan from Shen Gushuni. GMCDP, Disabled People's Refugees Project, DPRP leaflet, around 2003. The DPRP was project funded by the Home Office to support disabled refugees living in Greater Manchester to access services and take up opportunities. Disabled refugees and asylum seekers faced almost impossible challenges and barriers, so the need for specific advice and support is essential. On loan from Disabled People's Archive. Understanding Death Culture, In Search of Deathhood, book by Paddy Ladd, 2003. Dr. Paddy Ladd, lifelong campaigner on death rights, co-founder of the National Union of the Deaf, broadcaster and academic, has examined death culture and coined the term deathhood for the experience of deaf linguistic belonging. This cup is from Sign Circle, a deaf BSL camping festival. It belonged to Vicky Roberts, 1972 to 2015. The Sign Language Festival was held over a number of years in Lancashire and Yorkshire. It was a space for deaf people, their families and allies to get together and revel in being surrounded and entertained by BSL users. There were activities for children and adults, arts, crafts, performances, silent discos, information and more, communicators were provided for hearing people. Linda Marsh, Vicky's widow, said, quote, Vicky came back from Science Circle on a high with the joy of having spent a few days with other deaf people and BSL users. On loan from Linda Marsh. Black People First Conference Report, 1993. This report is from a conference organised by People First, an organisation run by and for people with learning disabilities. It presents the views of black people with learning difficulties on issues such as racism, services and education. Ethnic Disabled Group Emerging, EDGE, Leaflets, 1990s. EDGE was a user-led group offering practical, social and emotional support for black and minority ethnic disabled people. It was run for and by disabled people from Africa, the Caribbean and the Indian subcontinent. Photograph of Regard banner at Pride 2000s. The banner in the photograph was designed by Tony Malone in the 2000s. It replaced an original Stitch banner which was stolen, courtesy of Jew Gosling. Disabled Lesbian Group Postcards, 2002. Postcards by the Disabled Lesbian Group, who were part of Manchester's Lesbian Community Project. These postcards use humour to tackle perceptions within the LGBTQI+ community and show that disabled lesbians have the same desire for a social and romantic life as anyone else. Young Disabled Women's Day Flyer, 1995. This flyer promotes an event for young disabled women to coincide with International Women's Day in 1995. The event was organised by Greater Manchester Coalition of Disabled People, GMCDP, on loan from Disabled People's Archive. Autistic Pride Flag designed by Joseph Redford, 2015. Quote, The official Autistic Pride Flag is not settled. There are many versions of it and all are valid. This one has a rainbow infinity symbol which recognises that autism comes in many varieties. Gold is emphasised in this because this colour is increasingly associated with autism. The green represents being true to your nature and the purple represents neurodiversity. The fact that the rainbow is associated with LGBT pride and green and purple is associated with suffragettes is appreciated as the autistic rights movement draws inspiration from these movements. Joseph Redford. On loan from Joseph Redford. Mux Dennis Queen's Dress and Parasol, 2016 to 2017. Quote, The dress and the white parasol are items made for wearing in the Philadelphia Disability Pride Parade in 2016 and 2017, respectively. The dress was made of Disabled People's Direct Action Network, DAN, t-shirts and crafted in 2016. Many of DAN's t-shirts had a neon pink and black colour scheme, which I love. The top of the dress is a t-shirt which reads Disability Pride, made by Adapt. I bought it from a DAN store in Manchester in 1998. This is how I first met people from DAN and it gave me the confidence to join in. I joined DAN in 1999. The rest of the dress is made from 3 iconic DAN t-shirts, To Boldly Go Where All Others Have Gone Before, Proud, Angry and Strong, and Piss on Pity. Mux Dennis Queen. On loan from Mux Dennis Queen. Disabled/intersex flag and photograph created by Anise Akhtar, 2021. Quote, I am a disabled and intersex person. Other terms, DSD, disorders of/differences in sex development, VSC, variations in sex characteristic, or hermaphroditism, considered offensive. The flag represents these intersections. I never felt included by the intersex community. I saw parallels between the human rights violations of intersex people and how these relate to both the medical and social models of disability. I hope other disabled intersex people who are not afraid to voice access requirements and have felt excluded might reach out to me here at People's History Museum so we can have peer support and campaign as a collective. Anise Akhtar, on loan from Anise Akhtar. Regard t-shirt designed by Jew Gosling, 2018. Regard is the national LGBTQI+ disabled people's organisation, founded in 1989 and led by volunteers. Regard campaigns on LGBTQI+ issues within the disabled people's movement and on disability issues within the LGBTQI+ communities. They work nationally on issues that impact disproportionately on LGBTQI+ disabled people, particularly social care, hate crime and social isolation. Membership is free and allies can become associate members. On loan from Jew Gosling.